All right, let's talk about the Resident Evil trailer that came out just a few weeks ago. Everybody's throwing either positive or tiffy or anything. Everybody seems to have an opinion on the matter, so why not me just throw a little bit in there? So, what we're going to do, we're going to look at the trailer, we're going to break it down, we're going to talk about some of the crazy theories that have come out of it, some of the things that people just need to realize and get over, and just go from there because this is kind of a bit ridiculous. But anyway, let's start. The trailer.
Hello? I had a little bit of a problem on the road. I was wondering if I could use your phone. Hello?
All right, we're going to stop there. We're going to talk about what just happened. All right, obviously, we've got the trailer opening up to somebody that is in cold weather, and of course, it is very snow driven. For the purposes of Resident Evil, what we're going to use as canon is actually going to be a number of sources. And first of all, let's just get it out of here. This is a freaking adaptation, like all the other video game movies out there. Paul W.S. Anderson movies, the Welcome to Raccoon City, they all were adaptations of the source material when it comes to regular Resident Evil, which is the first 1996 game that has come out. Now, many will say that the remake that came out for the GameCube, as well as the HD remake, is the true canon, but I don't believe so, and we'll get to that in just a second, because there's a few things that Capcom just hasn't really come out and said, and that is what is canon in the games. Now, obviously, Resident Evil 9 that just came out and Requiem, they referenced the remakes of Resident Evil 2, and in some cases, Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 4, and then they also have some actual, like, hints and connections to Resident Evil 6. So when it comes to the movies, canon is still hullabub all over, all up in the air. And honestly, Paul W.S. Anderson, when he did all of the Resident Evil movies, which, by the way, in the first one, had not a lot of references to the actual canon of the game. Yes, it took place in the Hive. Yes, it took place in the underground kind of laboratory. Yes, it took place in Raccoon City. They had a T-virus, but that was it. You didn't have any of the main characters. You didn't even have really hardly a USB-C as well as an RPD. And even the RPD officer, which is Matt, was a front. The only other thing that was purely referenced is maybe the breakout or outbreak that occurs, and also with Nemesis that was referenced at the end of that movie. But there was also even more that came out of the books, but that's going to be a future video, believe it or not, I'm going to cover. So anyways, all right. That being said, canon can be all over the place. For the purposes of the trailer, I'm going to use even the regular OGs of 1, 2, and 3, as well as the remakes, and then we're going to go with the mainline stories of what is canon from there. Because honestly, I don't think you could pull from much more. You can't pull from Outbreak, really, but maybe you could. So it's a shot in the dark. Even Welcome to Raccoon City, which everyone is kind of touting as a one-to-one interpretation of Resident Evil, they still did things that was wrong. They had miscastings all over the place. The events of what occurred with Claire meeting up with Chris in the movie never happened in the game. You also had the Chief Irons, who was kind of a bumbling fun, kind of horrible, but also kind of funny guy, ends up turning good in the end. Wasn't even close to what it was a representation in the original games. He was a horrible human being that hunted people during an outbreak as well to fulfill his sick fantasies. And he even died later on. And all of them, including Jill, Chris, Claire, all of them actually meet together in the actual movie. And as one whole hodgepodge into a prequel to Code Veronica that will probably never happen. But anyways, I'm not going to harp on that. I'm just saying that as a reference. Okay. As we go through the original Resident Evil adaptation, this is obviously being directed by Zach Cregger, who has come out and said a number of things in some interviews. we have a reference of a courier or somebody here, Austin Abrams, who plays as one of these individuals through the cold weather, which everybody is like, oh my God, it's snowing and it's cold, but who knows? Maybe it's snowing and it's cold in Raccoon before it starts warming up during the time of the outbreak. But it shows a homage basically to being out in the outskirts with obviously a farm type environment that he's going to, and he has obviously come from some form of accident, crash, or something from whatever his car is. So this is in reference to that. The technology is also referenced here. It shows just a regular phone that is being used, which is also here. And he's also calling and talking to somebody from there. So let's continue moving forward, though. This is there's a lot of Resident Evil 4 homage or references here, even though it probably starts out in the outskirts and then eventually goes to the city. Okay.
Yes, we're sorry.
Hey, babe. Look, I'm really sorry that we got disconnected earlier, but, some things have, happened.
All right, as we move forward, we notice that on his jacket, when it comes to this, it is in reference actually to a medical center of some sort with a heart on it. So we do know that this particular character is an EMS person. Also, you'll notice in the corner of it, and even Zach Cregger mentioned it in the interview, that this is an actual herb that's a reference to the game. But again, we go back to the technology of the phone and the telephone that he has. He's obviously telling somebody that he's in a screwed up situation. He's not sure he's going to get in touch with her again, but it is part of the trailer in and of itself. Then we have this part that connects to it, actually walking out in the middle of not necessarily the snowstorm, but after snowfall. It looks like it's a little bit forward. He's carrying something, which obviously is going to be whatever it is that he is supposed to be carrying around, with what looks like probably the butt of a shotgun, most likely a double barrel. So let's move forward.
I'm in like a seriously fucked up situation right now.
I wanted to let that play out just a little bit longer. Obviously, we're showing a little bit closer of Austin Abrams' character as the courier. It shows the emblem on his jacket. It is showing he found a shotgun and he is stumbling and fumbling to try to find ammo for it, which actually happens in a few occasions, even in the more recent RE9, that you're able to find a weapon, but no ammo, or limited to no ammo, which also is a homage in reference to what the essence of Resident Evil is: survival horror at its finest. Now, as it continues to show him looking through, it shows a individual, and let's just head on back over here and we can reference that. So as you can see, the double barrel rifle that he found, or shotgun, is empty, which he needs to now look for weapons and more ammo. Now it cuts further into, it looks like the scene that he is here in the city. Obviously people are killed. It doesn't look like they're undead necessarily, but they could be. It does look like they have some form of destruction or killing that's happening to them. A little bit more reference to his jacket that has reflective materials that we see there. And now, instead of him actually holding a shotgun, it looks like he's holding a machine gun. So he does get a hold of a machine gun in the future. The other thing, too, is that in reference, he's going to a dead body, finding a particular set of keys. And, of course, as he does, it gets pulled away. And it's at that point. It's from there. Now, many folks are trying to say that this is a cell phone. Who knows? This is the one thing that really kind of grinds my gears just a little bit, because it's like, You know, even though for the fact that we were at a time, even in the late 90s, early 2000s, flashlights from flat devices could have occurred. And who knows, in this realm of imagination that we're seeing in the trailer, this could be something that maybe he pulled from a scientist. We just don't know yet. Everyone is kind of like saying this is humble fumble, but who knows? We just don't really know. It could also be that he's holding on to not just a phone, but he could be holding on to something that is more of a military flashlight. We just don't know yet. And many folks are just losing their minds over this stuff, saying like, oh my God, it's not towards the time. Well, they don't really make it super clear on some of the technologies that exists for Resident Evil in 96 in the original game when they go into the laboratory. So who knows? But anyway, when he goes to grab the keys, it's being pulled. And obviously, the body, when it's being pulled like that, it's in reference to, obviously, when you go and play a Resident Evil game, you grab a set of keys or attempt to grab a set of keys. It usually initiates an action that causes a bigger event that occurs. And this, honestly, is more of a homage and more of the essence of what Resident Evil is. If it's very tilt in and focused on what the essence is for Resident Evil on one character alone going through a crazy situation like this with who knows what being behind whatever doors that come out. And honestly, I'm all for it. That's why I enjoy this. But let's continue to move forward. We'll talk a bit more about the rest of it.
And it looks like there's a chance that we might not get to talk to each other again.
I'm gonna stop right there because there's even more stuff we're gonna talk about here. Obviously, in the next scene, he is shown to actually go down a sewer. A sewer is another part that is very much huge in the lore of Resident Evil. Usually, you start in ground level. You start with certain set pieces that are through just regular buildings. And then as you discover more and more, you find out more secrets. More secrets usually lead to other kind of levels that basically come with the game. And honestly, there's always a sewer usually, and everybody usually ends up feeling disgusting, dreadful, and claustrophobic about it. And so a lot of folks don't like the sewers. I am one of them. So a lot of times, depending on, the sewers that you go to, terrible things reside. The other thing, too, is there are a lot of things that could come out of a sewer. In the original game, it was the spiders. It was also the hunters. And in some cases, it had a little bit of the calabra, which was kind of an insecticide type of experience. Now, in the remake versions, they changed it and upped it up a bit. When I say they, I mean Capcom. They added the mini G virus versions of Birkin that was down there. Those things were horrible. I actually was a little fearful of that, and it was pretty crazy. So the other reason I bring this up is because there are a lot of ways that they can evolve monsters when it comes to the sewers. And in doing so, a lot of folks fixated on they double. It's funny because the meme is like the double XL version of Mr. X. Obviously, we have a big looking, pale looking monstrosity there, and many folks are going to say that that is like a Mr. X XL. But honestly, we don't know. There's a lot of things that come with these different viruses, and I would say if the G virus is actually in the sewers already outbroken during the sequences of this time, it could be a number of things. But whether or not that's a zombie that is actually going to go around and start killing him, great, but I don't see it. I mean, for one thing, there's a lack of gore around his mouth, chest, and everything else. So it looks like it's something that evolved from something else. It could also be a failed experiment from Umbrella. We don't really know yet. So the whole notion that, they just don't know the source material, I don't think that's the case. I think it's just an evolution of what it is, because they always exaggerate every time with these movies. Every time they always exaggerate all the different experiments and things that come from this movie. Let's continue to move forward. All right. There's a few things to unpack here. First things first, everybody is wondering what the hell this thing is. And you know what? There's even some folks that are pulling out scrapped versions of a monster of multiple zombies together as in one big magic mold of gore and terribleness. Well, here's the thing. If you've played the OG games and even Resident Evil 2 Remake, the G virus, if it is something that's reflected from that, already does that. And the evolution of Birkin as you're killing him, or if you're killing the tyrant that is chasing you, Mr. X in this case, that ends up being, that part of the storyline. There's a lot of evolutions that come out of that where eventually the virus itself gets so destroyed in the enemy and entity that it becomes unstable and merges in a bunch of dead bodies. Resident Evil 3, the OG, as well as the remake, even had merges of dead things that merged together to actually make a big, living, horrible, gory entity. In Nemesis, for the OG, you actually went through a trash compactor sequence where it ends up being just one big mishmash pot of just dead gore and skin. And honestly, I'm not many people seem to think that this is like, well, this is a made up thing, and it's like, it may not be. If this is an unstable element of G, even an unstable element of T virus, you're gonna get this. Hell, they injected the T virus in a freaking set of skin cells to create the liquor. I mean, there's many different ways that this is going to be evolved in this particular movie. Do I think this means that they lack in source material? No. They just, again, they exaggerate all of this stuff, and they've done it every time. I hate to say it, but it's not a joke. Even all the Paul W.S. Andersons went nuts. I mean, hell, they even brought things in that didn't make sense. In the shower scene with Claire and Alice, they're fighting the axe-wielding dude from Resident Evil 5 to bring fanfare. Didn't make sense then. Everybody seemed to be fine with it here. So that's why I'm just... I'm not really losing it over this, but I tell you what, some folks are. But, all right, let's continue watching the rest of this. And there it is. The other thing, too, everybody is like, oh my God, where are the zombies? This is the scene that has them. He's obviously locked up the doors that are shown here. All the zombies coming through with the red glow in the back. Like, that is something that it's expected just because of the fact the majority of the teaser trailer does not mean that there's not going to be enough zombies. In fact, there's even other scenes of it. But honestly, that I cordially expect that. And if folks just feel like there's just not enough zombies, this is a teaser trailer. I don't want them to show everything, and hopefully they don't, because good Lord, I'm already amped up for this already, and it looks really great. And we'll keep moving forward because I'm sure I'll have more critiques toward the end.
I just wanted you to know.
And again, there's more of this. It obviously shows in the cold and winter, there's more, piles of probably dead things that are there. I mean, we don't know about zombies being frozen in the cold. That's never been really a thing until Code Veronica, really. But even then, it's not like they were completely frozen. Usually there was something that occurred to it that kind of got to that way. There was that part of it. There's a bit more that showcased there, and as we go through, I think this one part is going to be pretty pivotal as we go. This obviously is going to show him towards the car that's been overturned. Obviously, it's him probably leaving to find something, and maybe it doesn't look like he's got his pack with him, so maybe it's him to go back and get the pack. And who knows, with that, maybe Zach Cregger is doing a homage there in order to say, Hey, guess what? In the original Resident Evil games and even in the new ones, you kind of have to backtrack. And you know what? I bet you it's going to happen in this. So there's a lot of little homages here I can tell. And in order to bring the essence of Resident Evil and why this would be called that, because it's a little bit more than just characters. The first Paul W.S. Anderson movie that came out that everybody likes, including myself, actually, for a good point of it, did not have any characters from the original. The only thing they said was Nemesis. And that was probably the only thing from the OGs. And even that, you can argue, is not really the OG because Nemesis wasn't brought up until Resident Evil 3. But even then, like, they didn't talk about Chris Claire Redfield. They didn't talk about really. They talked about Umbrella and its inner workings because the entire movie was focused on the Umbrella team. They had a guy named Spencer, but had nothing to do with the Spencer Mansion and Oswald E. Spencer. So it's just silly. Anyway, let's continue forward.
I just wanted you to know. I love you.
All right, and that's the entirety of it. Few other things to note. Obviously, it shows him running down a long way that's lit up with cars parked on the sides, and it looks like he's carrying that very special package in and of itself. It looks like it's a green package, which is what they normally do, anyways, in this universe. They make things super white, super green to indicate medical or medicinal and things of that nature. Yeah, and it's got a big, like, medical cross on it. So that's going to be the most important thing about it. And then as he's running through, we've got these zombies that are falling down because you can see some of the dead bodies there. Even in the background here on the left side, that is falling down onto the cars to running towards him. And that's okay. That's a little bit more of a running zombie that we never had in Resident Evil. And Resident Evil 1.5, we almost did have running zombies or faster, stronger zombies because of the fact that they had to scrap it because of the fact it was too hard. Because at the time, the technology wasn't really good at holding on a lot of 3D elements, so they couldn't have a ton on there. And when they did, they definitely had to make sure they reeled it back for the lower FPS that the PlayStation was capable of. And here's the thing, like, it's great. I would rather have some new evolved type of zombies here during the outbreak itself. And honestly, this could take place during the course of Outbreak or slash the events of Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3. Because in Resident Evil 3, a good portion, even in the OG one, you actually went through the hospital the majority of the time. At least probably, I would say, about a good last quarter where Jill had to go through the not haunted, but infected hospital that had zombies in it, but mostly that was taken over by hunters, as it usually showed in the opening scene, the zombie coming out and getting just clobbered by a hunter. So there could be a lot of things. This could be the origin or upbringing or taking place of literally the opening scene to a greater set of movies that take place, that he's transferring the T virus basically to the hospital and maybe the Umbrella Corp and doesn't even realize it. He's a contractor, I would say, at this point. Anyway, so that's the essence of what I'm seeing with this. Everybody seems to have a big discourse, or probably because of the fact that they don't have a one-for-one on characters. Even if they did, I hope the connections are very subtle. I don't want them to have a one-for-one. Otherwise, we would have Welcome to Raccoon City. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed Welcome to Raccoon City. I'm a very, I mean, if people don't know me already, I'm pretty biased when it comes to how much I love the Resident Evil lore and universe. And even then, I thought there were some parts of it that were just very boring for the movie, but I did enjoy it. Again, a lot of miscastings. A lot of things went down that were interesting that I thought was great. I wish the whole band could get together and meet at the end and escape Raccoon City like it was. But honestly, if this is the movie where we have an NPC or some new guy that is a dead body in reference to, causing the outbreak to go further down the way, great. And I'm all for it, to be honest. Maybe this is there's so many ways we could go about this, but the one thing that throws me off is there's a good portion of folks that really support this, and then there's a good portion of folks, and I think it's Twitter and X, and I hate Twitter and X, because I'll tell you what, everybody's got an opinion on there, and most of the time it's just wrong, if it is, but who knows. I don't agree. I don't agree. I think this has more essence of a Resident Evil film than any of the other ones. This has more of a better horrific feel of unease and a horror cinematic adventure than the Paul W.S. Anderson one. We didn't even see a zombie in that one towards, I think it was close to about 40 minutes into the film. It wasn't until then we saw that what happens to basically people before they return and how it was exposed and how the outbreak happened in the hive. And then you didn't even get to see it until the second movie of the outbreak. Yeah, you saw the ending clip, but it was just a bunch of burning buildings, a bunch of improperly parked cars with a shotgun, with Alice's character out there in just a science jacket and are just two pieces of paper, really. And now she's looking to survive it. Apocalypse had great things. It had great casting. Jill Valentine was one of the best. I didn't see a Claire, and didn't even see a Chris in there either until number 4. But you know what? Like, there were just some things about it, and it's still a guilty pleasure of mine. I still watch Apocalypse here and there, and in fact, the book is even more interesting. And again, I'm going to cover those in the future. But even then, it wasn't a one-for-one representation. There's a lot of things wrong with that movie that many people complained about and had problems with. And you know what? It turned out to be still one of the top-selling movies in the franchise. This is what they do. They start with a concept, or they start with a movie that's an adaptation. They probably start pretty low, and I'm sure this one's got a little bit more money because of the fact that Zach Cregger did really great with Barbarian, and it even did even better with Weapons, depending on who you are. I've talked to some of you. Some love Weapons and some hate it. I thought Weapons was great, and it brought a lot of the audience in to break records for horror movies. One thing this probably won't be is a horror gore fest, like Terrifier. I don't get why people love Terrifier. I don't think it has a lot of meaningful story to me. I'm not trying to throw shade on it, but it seems like everybody is there for the shock and awe of dismemberment and probably the obscurity and uncomfortableness that some of the horrific gore parts occur, and I just don't find that very interesting. I'd like to have a good story. I want to have a good character. I love to have an unsettling adventure, and a lot of the horror movies that come out now are either in one of these categories or the other. And so there's no wrong answer depending on what you like and prefer, but in the essence of this, there is a lot of things here that really breathe the essence of Resident Evil. There's still a lot of details we don't know yet, and honestly, I'm all for that. I want it to be surrounded in mystery until, we get closer. I may even stop reading or watching any of the information about this movie until September when it comes out, because I am just that excited for it. So anyway, for those that are posing the, kind of the argument that this isn't a Resident Evil movie, I mean, there is a lot that reads that and a lot of it that doesn't read that. So it depends how superficial you are when it comes to what it actually breathes to determine if whether or not this is a Resident Evil movie. There's a lot here that does breathe Resident Evil, and I bet you there's going to be a lot more connections canonically with the games that is going to make this kind of fit in the universe. But if you're thinking this is going to slide into a nice little slot between when it comes to Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2 Remake, and Resident Evil 3 and 3 Remake, I hate to break it to you, it's probably just going to go in parallel, and it's going to go back and forth with Well, that didn't happen in the game, so how does it happen here? That was destroyed here. I guarantee you it's not going to fit in a nice, beautiful slot. When has Capcom ever done that for any of their movies? And honestly, it's fine. It expands the lore and makes more interesting stories to come into it. And I don't understand why everybody is against that. You're saying you don't want anything, so don't make anything else, just like the, Ghostbuster fanboys that didn't want Ghostbusters Afterlife. Come on now. If we didn't have the problems and issues of other ones or other stepping stones of movies in order for that to come out and connect with the original movie of Afterlife, then you wouldn't have got it. So keep posing the interest and keep watching and keep seeing the mystery that comes out of this. And maybe we'll get a set of movies just like we did with Paul W.S. Anderson's movies that made a cajillion dollars for Capcom. It's still one of the top selling video game adaptations that I don't understand people get. And yes, I get it. More money does not mean it's good, but it's good enough for even the normal Joe Schmo that knows nothing about Resident Evil to come to the theaters and see it. So, as an early fan, I didn't really appreciate it as much at the time. I still watched them, I still was entertained by them. But as I got older now, I've learned to appreciate those movies more and more. And I love that they actually are still experimenting and still doing these things with more Resident Evil films. And I guarantee you, this one is going to do well. Whether or not people are, complaining that it's not a one for one, hate to break it to you, I bet you it's still going to do well. And I will also be the first to see it to let you know. And you know what? If it's an utterly horrible failure, you know what? That's fine. It's going to go away. And guess what? They'll probably try again. So you may get your wish if that is the case. Anyway, that is the breakdown. That's how I feel about all the sorts of things when it comes to Resident Evil. Everyone's throwing around their opinions, so guess what? Here's mine. I know it's just not a cool thing to say, but honestly, I don't know why everybody is freaking out as much as they are. I think this is going to be a great movie, and I look forward to it. And honestly, I will critique it all the same, just like I have with everything else. And so we'll go from there. Feel free to follow and subscribe to me to see how that journey happens, and we'll see where it goes and go from there, because honestly, it's going to be interesting, to say the least. Thanks for your time. Have a good night, day, whichever, and I'll catch you in the next video.